what's up guys, it's Jess. Welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I have a new background. Don't look too closely because I'm going to do a room tour soon, but I'm in a new apartment. I'm so flipping excited. Today's video is a very juicy topic and I'm going to be talking about WeedOut classes at the University of Washington. I didn't know what WeedOut classes were prior to committing to the University of Washington, and I really wish I did because they have a huge impact on your freshman year. For most of the majors at UW, you have to take a few prerequisite classes, and these can be pretty brutal sometimes. It's gonna feel like such a weird environment because there's so many students and you want to get along with everyone and you want to form study groups and all that, but essentially you're all kind of competing with one another academically because you're trying to get a spot for that major. Especially if the major is competitive, it is so cutthroat in those prerequisite classes. The reason why they're called WeedOut classes is because they're designed to be extremely difficult. Students are put under a lot of academic stress while taking these prerequisite classes, and some of them can't handle it. They decide, I'm not pursuing this major anymore, I can't do this anymore, hence why they call it WeedOut. In my Instagram Q&A, I asked UW students what was their least favorite / most difficult WeedOut class, and here are the results. A lot of my responses were about Chem 142. One person said there were no chapters that related to one another and there was a 40% average on tests in the midterms. Another person said that the Chem series was required for most STEM majors, but there was too much obscure material that you don't need. Another person said that Chem 142 is usually the first STEM class you take and it hits you like a truck. Another person said the entire organic chemistry series, all the professors are horrible and the exams are impossible. Another class someone mentioned is Physiology 101. They hated the way the tests were written, and here's an example of what it would look like. Another person said Architecture 201. Another class a few people mentioned was Econ 200, where one person said they grade based on the words in the given definitions / principles / diagrams, etc. you use, and another person said she didn't have that great of a teacher or TA and she took it online. Next is CS 143, and someone wrote, the style errors will kill your grade if your TA is a harsh grader, barely passed. And lastly, the most mentioned one was the calc-based physics series, Physics 121, 122, and 123. One person wrote, I think that what we learned in lecture was really hard to apply to exam level questions. Even some of the homework questions were difficult. There were so many different equations to keep track of that I didn't know where to start some exam questions. I don't know if being in person would have made a difference because I've always kind of struggled with physics even in high school. Also, most of the exam questions are multiple choice, and to get the right answer, you need to use equations and work out the math. So under a time crunch, if you don't know how to start a multiple choice question, it's better to skip it and save it for the end. At least you can guess if it comes to that, but it was still rough. He also said he's done pretty well in Gen Chem, OChem, Bio, and even Math. I think all those other subjects, at least for me, I can nail exam questions if I do just enough practice because there's usually only one or two ways of doing them. But physics, you kind of almost have to think outside the box. Another person said exams are very different from the content and the averages tended to be about a 50%. Another person said they pray on your downfall, Lowkey. Another person said, you learn so much information, and especially online, it was not fun. Since I am in STEM, a physics and astronomy major, I needed to take the math series and the physics series, and both were pretty brutal. Some person responded about Math 124 and said, I felt like everyone else was naturally talented and that I was destined to fail. So I performed above average on almost all of the exams in Math 124. I think I got like a 98 on the first midterm. But I think the only reason I was able to do that is because I learned all of the material in that class in high school. I took AP Calculus BC. I didn't get the AP credit for that class, hence why I needed to take Math 124 in college. So I felt like I was already ahead of everyone else in that sense. But if you don't have that much calc experience in high school, I can see how this class can be extremely difficult. It really does hit you like a truck. The flipping final, oh my god. I remember the final so vividly. There was this one question I know for a fact no one in the class knew how to solve. Math 125 was okay, but in my case, it was when COVID just started, so there was no final to save my flipping grade. It was so bad. And then Math 126, the last class in the math series, I had the most goated professor at the University of Washington, Professor Lovelace. He was amazing, taught me everything. In my opinion, he also had a really great structure to his class in an online environment. Instead of having 2 midterms and a final that your entire grade is based on, you have like 5 or 6 quizzes that average out, and you get to drop your lowest one. So I felt like that definitely boosted my grade a lot, and I really appreciated that, especially taking the class online. Next, getting into the physics series, which is the most responses I got on Instagram. It was pretty brutal. I had a lot of prior knowledge going into Physics 121 after taking AP Physics and AP Physics C, and yet I was still struggling. I felt like it was really difficult for me to connect what I learned in lecture and what I learned in tutorial and what I learned in the homework to apply to the exam. The physics series at UW is also known for what's called tutorials, and I hated on them in my previous videos, and I will continue to hate on them until they restructure them. You're put into a room, sit down with a group of students, and you have to work through these problems while a TA walks around and listens to your conversations. I understand how it's best to talk things through, kind of see like, oh, what do you think about this? Oh, I actually disagree. Blah, blah, blah. I understand how that can be beneficial. What I don't think is beneficial is that the TA will walk around, listen to your answers like, oh, yeah, that could be right, that could be wrong. And then the quiz section will be over. And you won't know if whatever you put on the paper was right or wrong. Your entire group won't know if the answers are right or wrong. Oh my... The biggest problem is that some of these questions, this material, these concepts will appear on the homework and especially the flipping exams. If you don't know what you're doing is actually right or not, how are you supposed to know if it's right or not on a test? You don't. Another thing I didn't like about the physics series is that they would have homework or other stuff due a day or two before the actual exam, and it wouldn't be stuff that's related to the exam. I think all classes should have at least a few days in between material and exam for you to genuinely study, because sometimes I felt like I was doing the homework and I never actually had time to study for the exams because they just came up so quickly. The averages on the exams are like a 40%, but everyone else does bad too, so the curve will probably boost your grade up and you'll be fine. Now it's time for some stories I have about these WeedOut classes. I remember taking the second midterm of Physics 121, and one dude just got his paper and turned it in and left 5 minutes into the exam. I don't know if he did super well in that class where he could drop that midterm, or if he just saw it and was like, I can't do this, and just let it be. Another girl sat in the middle of the room and started bawling during the exam. I saw a few people cry after the exam, but when everyone heard her during the middle of the exam, it's like, oh, we feel bad, but also like, shut up, I'm trying to do my work here. Anyway, whoever that was, I hope you're doing okay now. To wrap up this video and offer my advice, seriously, do not be stressed out about WeedOut classes. Everyone is in the same boat as you. Everyone is struggling. The averages are averages for a reason. If the average is a 40%, it's because other people got similar grades as you did, so really just don't worry about it. Yeah, there will be that one kid that got a 98%, but there will also be that one kid that got a 2%, okay? So if you're in the middle, you're fine. Even if you're below the middle, do not stress about it. I've performed below average on some of the midterms before, and that doesn't matter. I still passed these physics prereqs, I passed the math prereqs, and I got into my major. You'll be fine. And that's not to say that this is a class you can slack off in. It's the exact opposite. You need to do all of your homework. You need to go to all the quiz sections. You need to go to your TAs. You need to go to academic resources like Clue Tutoring. There's a lot of effort you need to put in, and sometimes it can be mentally and physically draining, but just stick through it and you'll be okay. That's the end of today's video. If you have any questions about WeedOut classes, UW, or anything in general, just let me know. Shoot me a DM on Instagram or comment down below, and I totally got you. I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!